tropical storms, even volcanic eruptions. But wildfires are common in Hawaii. They're a seasonal occurrence. It's been relatively hot and dry across much of the state recently. But again, what really made the difference was the strong winds from Hurricane Dora. And that combined with the dry fuel really turned that into a major set of fires. And the extent of that destruction is definitely not common.
So what are you watching for in the coming hours, coming days?
Mayor Richard Bisson of Maui County said they're still fighting 3 fires on the island. Mitch Roth of Hawaii Island says at least 3 fires also still being battled on the Big Island. One development, Acting Governor Sylvia Luke announced an emergency proclamation discouraging tourists from going to Maui. And they're moving people off of Maui here to Oahu. Emergency officials opening the convention center here in Honolulu to take people coming in from Maui, primarily tourists. Fire situation continues. Red flag warning for much of the state on the leeward, drier sides. Increased risk of fire, and emergency proclamation now covering all counties. We'll continue to learn more about the severity of the devastation of this event.
Okay. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you. Aloha.
Hawaii Public Radio's Bill Dorman.
If you were trying to grow a water-intensive crop, like hay for cattle, for instance, you probably wouldn't go to the middle of the desert in Arizona, a state experiencing a water crisis so bad, it's planning to limit development around the city of Phoenix. But there's a lot of alfalfa being produced for hay in a county west of Phoenix using local groundwater, and it's being grown by agricultural companies from the Middle East, all for export outside the U.S. New investigative reporting has found that the state of Arizona's own retirement fund has invested $175 million in the land deal that makes this arrangement possible, at least in one case. Nate Holverson of Reveal from the Center for Investigative Reporting is here to explain what his team has found. Nate, welcome.
Hey.
So Nate, just to get us started, I want to get an idea of how this all works. Are the people who are managing Arizona's pension fund actually investing directly into these foreign companies?
No, they gave money to an investment company from the East Coast that buys up large tracts of farmland and then leases it out, and in this case, leased it out to a company from the United Arab Emirates.
Okay, can you just help me understand the scale of this? How much hay and how much water are we actually talking about?
Well, this trend has actually grown significantly within just the last 10 years. In fact, a recent report from the University of Arizona found that it's grown 100 times the original size from just 10 years ago. We're now talking about so much water being used to grow hay just for export that it's the equivalent of about what 1 million people in the state use for water every year.
Wow. I mean, hearing you talk about the scope of this and describing what's been going on there, I have to wonder, is it endangering the water supply for local residents?
Well, I think that's the real threat of harm here. So I went to the areas around the farms and I spoke to the residents that live there. And these are folks that rely entirely on the groundwater for everything they do in their homes. And folks are running out of water. They're watching the groundwater underneath them sink lower and lower every year as these big mega farms continue to pump water up. They're seeing their own water depleted, and some folks have had to spend tens of thousands of dollars to drill deeper wells. Other folks can't afford it, and so they're having to have water trucked in, and some folks have just left the area. And I think that's what a lot of people worry about, is that these areas without groundwater, or as the groundwater gets lower and lower, are going to become eventually unlivable.
I know that Reveal has previously broken a story about a Saudi-owned hay farm operating in the Arizona desert. How'd your team learn about this?
Well, essentially, I began looking into what countries were running into problems with water, what countries didn't have enough water, and that led me to Saudi Arabia, which had effectively in about 30 years drained down its aquifers. And so I thought, well, if the Saudis did that, where are they going? And to my surprise, in 2015, I found that they had bought 9 square miles in the Arizona desert and were pumping up water from the aquifer to grow hay that they would then ship back to Saudi Arabia.